Welcome. Let's talk about what happens on a job interview if you're asked a question that you do not know the answer to. I know this is every interviewer's greatest fear, right? That they're going to be asked a question and not have the answer to that because you can practice for hours and hours and hours and hours. You can practice hundreds of different interview questions, and still they can ask you something that you are just not prepared for. So here's how you're going to handle this. Number one, pause. Resist the urge to just open your mouth and start speaking without figuring out what direction you're going in. So just pause for a second. Okay. Reflect for a moment and then say something like, wow, that's a really good question. Let me think about that for a second. Or even ask if you can think about that during this interview and circle around back to that later in the interview when you had a time to give more thought to the answer to that question. Okay. Now, suppose you know that you're never going to have an answer to that question. Like, for example, let's say that they asked you a question of, tell me about a time when you had a disagreement or you disagreed with your boss during a meeting and how you handled that. And you know right up front that this never happened before. So, what I want you to do is, I want them to see that thought process that you're going through as you're answering that question. So I want you to say, I have been very fortunate that that has never happened to me at my position. But here's how I would handle that if it did. I said, first, I would recognize the difference between if we were having an internal meeting or a meeting with clients and stakeholders. Now, if it was an internal meeting and we were a collaborative team and we all bounced ideas off of each other all the time, my boss, myself, my colleagues, and I disagreed with my boss, then I could very politely and respectively um, give my opinion and express why I disagreed with my boss's idea. Suppose we were having a meeting and there were other people involved. Well, so now it depends on where that meeting is, right? So if it's a video meeting and everybody is, in their own areas on their computers, you might have the opportunity to privately send a Teams message or a text message to your boss so that you can explain where maybe they made a mistake or where maybe there's another point of view without them feeling that anybody else sees what's going on and they won't be embarrassed by you making that correction. And that's really important to note, right? Is that we never want to put our boss or any of our team in a position where we are embarrassing them in front of other people. Okay. Another way that I would handle this is if we were at a meeting and there were stakeholders and there was no way to privately get a message over to my boss, I would I would weigh the magnitude of when I'm disagreeing with somebody. Is it something that needs to be said right now? Is it time sensitive? Like, did they make a mistake on a date that makes a difference? Did they tell everybody to come back next Wednesday when the next meeting is really next Tuesday and everybody is going to miss that? Well, then I would politely step up and I would say, you know what, I'm sorry. I think we have that scheduled for Tuesday. I see that the Google invite is for this date, right? But if it's something that is not time sensitive, it is something that can wait, and you do not need to make a scene right then and there at that meeting, then I would definitely make sure that I waited and I didn't put anybody in an awkward position, especially in front of clients. That's what I would do, right? And then you conclude by saying, that's what I would do if I were in a position where I disagreed with my boss during a meeting. Right. So I didn't have an answer up front. It didn't happen to me, but instead of just spitting out a response, I gave them my thought process and I gave a few different examples, meaning that I wouldn't treat it the same in every case, and it shows that reflective process. So, whenever you are on an interview and you're faced with a question that you don't know the answer to, like maybe it's about a technology, do you know how to use this software? I never want you to shut the door. I want you to pause. I want you to think for a moment. I want you to think about what that software is, what it's similar to, and then talk about the programs that you know that are almost the same program, right? Maybe a project management software, and how how quickly you master that project management software and how easy it would be for you to master this next one. And I've even had clients say, and if you give me over the weekend and give me an opportunity to meet up with you again next week, I promise I'll be able to showcase my skills in that software. Okay. And by the way, it's worked and they've gotten the job. So make sure that whenever you don't know the answer to the question, you give yourself a moment to think about it. You respond to the person and you treat them like a person and you respond intelligently to the question there. You never just shut doors. I know that people are nervous, they're anxious on interviews. And if they ask you something and your answer is no, you just say no. Refrain from saying no. Keep the door open and the communications open while answering every single question on a job interview. If you'd like some more help with that, that's exactly what I do. My name is Cindy Lish. I'm a career coach that empowers career changers, transitioning teachers, and those returning to the workforce to find amazing jobs that match their current why. Let's schedule a free 45-minute discovery call to talk about how I can help you to be successful in your job search. I hope you found this super helpful for you. Always remember you're a warrior. I hope you have a super productive week. I'll catch you next week. Have a good one.